Welcome to the STEM Formula, a podcast from the residential campus of the Governor School for Science and Mathematics, located in beautiful Hartsville, South Carolina. In this podcast series, we enjoy a down-to-earth, straightforward discussion about advanced STEM education. Hi, I'm Michael.
And I'm Nicole.
So Nicole, who did you interview today?
Today I talked to Taylor Belcher. He's one of our math instructors at the Governor School.
Yeah, at the Governor School we have programs residentially and we also have them online. Taylor's one of the few instructors that has been able to teach in both of these.
Yeah, and Taylor's always thinking of new ideas. Even when he was teaching virtually, and now that he's in our residential program, he's always looking for new ways to improve his teaching.
Well, let's hear what Taylor had to say right after these messages.
GSSM is South Carolina's nationally recognized STEM high school for academically gifted students. Take your education to the next level. GSSM Residential and STEM Foundations are for grades 11 through 12. Summer research and international travel lead to earning the distinguished GSSM diploma. Accelerate is GSSM's engineering program for grades 10 through 12, taught virtually, in real time, at participating schools. Students can earn 50 dual enrollment credits. GSSM offers all these opportunities tuition-free. Let's talk.
Good morning, Taylor. Thanks for joining us on the STEM Formula.
Yeah, you're welcome, Nicole. Good morning.
Can you start out by telling us about your background and how you got to GSSM?
Sure. I graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a degree in mathematics, and then I went to Bowling Green State University for graduate school, and I moved down to South Carolina for my wife, and ended up at this job after teaching at Spring Valley High School for 3 years.
Awesome. That sounds good. And you've had a lot of extensive experience teaching in lots of different platforms. And so you started out teaching virtually for us here, and now you're teaching in our residential program. But can you talk about teaching virtually and what methods really worked well for you?
Yeah. So my previous experience before the Governor School, I was just teaching asynchronously. So I would teach for a college and make a class, and maybe the students would watch the videos, maybe they wouldn't. I didn't know. But at the Governor School, we had live Zoom classes. Even before everybody was doing Zoom classes. So something that I really enjoyed with the students is that live interaction, and then I have just this huge Wacom board, and I can write. And actually, that's the thing I miss most now that I'm teaching residentially. Is I'm back to writing on a regular whiteboard, and I really loved my big old virtual Wacom to write and show students things.
Yeah, exactly. And how did you connect? You did a really good job of connecting with your students despite that virtual. So what kinds of methods did you use for that?
My students, I love to start a class every year and asking them whether a hot dog is a sandwich. And the whole point of that is to get them to debate what the definition of a sandwich is, and then test what their conceptions of certain things are, whether it matches their definition of sandwich or not. So it's not really about yes or no, yes, a hot dog is a sandwich, but rather based on your definition of sandwich, is the hot dog a sandwich? And the point of that in math is, we make some assumptions, and then based on those assumptions, what are the consequences of those assumptions? And so anyway, for being ridiculous, we were talking about a sandwich, and I told the kids about a toast sandwich, which is just toast inside bread. And it's just 3 layers of bread. And so we were debating whether it was a sandwich, and I said, all right, everybody stop right now, because they were all at home, right? Go make a toast sandwich and report back. So I just got up, and I came back, and they're like, you went and actually made it? I went and made a toast sandwich. And toast sandwiches are not very good.
So what was the conclusion? Did they decide that toast sandwiches actually count as a sandwich or not?
I can't remember,
okay.
But they would bring it up.
That's actually a great way to get students thinking about definitions, and especially all the assumptions that we make, because in math that's so important, and students like to skip over those assumptions really quickly. Was just grading a mean value theorem question and asking about the assumptions. So yeah.
Yeah. So another way that I do that a lot of times is with the which one doesn't belong activity. So and I always tell them it's not a guess what the teacher is thinking, read my mind kind of thing, but I got this from Christopher Danielson, and there's a website, it's which one doesn't belong.ca, so it's WODB.ca, and there's just lots of free examples, but it's always 4 images, and then in the 4 images, there's always something in common among, you can always pick out 3 of them that have something in common. So the idea is to get the kids to notice a pattern and then explicitly give, this one doesn't belong because. So like, you know, if you have, like there's a big die and then a small die and then 2 regular sized die, but then maybe they're all twisted one way or something, and so they can always say like, well, the big one doesn't belong because it's the only big one, right? Or that one doesn't belong on the bottom left because it's been twisted to the right and all the other ones have been twisted. And so it's not about picking a particular one, but giving your reasoning for why you've picked that one, or justifying the pattern that you've noticed. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a cool way. Yeah, especially of getting students to do that explanation, because I think when we get our students, they're used to like, okay, I just got the right answer. That's all that matters. But there's so much more to math than that.
Yeah.
So, nice, awesome. And you use Desmos a lot in your classes too, right?
Yeah. So I try to make my own activities, but a lot of times, you know, you just have to end up using something that somebody else made, and maybe you modify it for yourself. But I love those Desmos activities where you get this interaction. That's another way that, especially with the virtual, where you could get an interaction with the kids that maybe you'd have to replicate another way. Although I do use Desmos in face-to-face classes too, but it gives them a screen to work with, and then you can see what they're typing. And also, you know, if you do it right, you can see a layer of everybody's answers all at once. So in calculus, just a couple weeks ago, we were doing a graph sketching, and so I made problems from our textbook that had graphs, and then they were supposed to sketch a graph. So they did, you know, they found the derivatives and they did all of the work, and then they sketched the graph, and then I had the Desmos activity set up so that on the next screen, their sketch was the background, and then it would the computer would graph, and then they could compare their sketch to the actual function to see how well they did. And I actually found myself trying to go back to the 80s, because all I could think about when I was first trying to do that activity was like my math teachers having like an overhead projector, because that's what I wanted, was a transparency with a picture of the graph, and then let the kids draw on the whiteboard and then project it over. And it's like, well, I don't even know if there's a transparency projector in the whole building. There's probably not. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this with Desmos and it'll be way better. And so that's what I was like. I was like going to go to Michael and be like, I need a projector. Do we have a projector? And he's like, what?
That's awesome how old technology can sometimes be useful, but I'm glad Desmos worked for you.
Yes.
So when you're doing Desmos with your in-person students, are you having them like bring a device to class and do it in class, or doing that outside of class time?
Yeah, so my students usually expect, I almost knocked over my coffee. There is coffee in here. So they expect that sometimes I'll give those activities. So typically if they've got a laptop, they'll bring the laptop. We don't really use it every day, but on days where I say, hey, we're going to do Desmos, then they know to bring it out. And if they didn't bring one, you know, Desmos it's not ideal on the phone, but a lot of them have their phone, and then they can pull their phone out. And so usually stuff like that, yeah.
So Taylor, you've already talked about a lot of different methods and things that you do in your classes, but what other strategies do you use that you really like? One
of my favorite illustrations I tell is something I got from my professor at Cincinnati, Dr. Tara Smith. She taught me abstract algebra, and it's about a blue elephant. And the point of the illustration is that we want students to, when they're facing a new problem, turn it into a problem that they've already solved, right? So like, I don't know how to solve this. Well, maybe I can reframe it or rewrite it so it's something that I have seen before. And so once I've told that joke to the students, they'll always be like, oh, blue elephant, take a problem I don't know how to solve, turn it into a problem that I do know how to solve. And it sticks with the students, because last year my seniors TP'd my house and also left me a stuffed blue elephant, which is still sitting in my office.
Nice, excellent. So do you have any last advice for anybody out there teaching math, Taylor?
The thing that I found that works for me is really it's that, right? It's find what works for you. So if I'm trying something that I've heard about, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And even if it works for me for one class, it might not work for another class. It really depends on who you are as a teacher and what your style is. And then you have to listen to the personality of your class, because I think classes have different personalities. And so I found that an activity that went really well for one group didn't really go well at all for the the next group, and sometimes it's just like that, and you're always having to listen and adjust to the students and try new stuff.
Yeah, I definitely find that in my classes too. Well, thanks for joining us today, Taylor.
Of course.
Now, Nicole, just like Taylor, you're a mathematician. What did you think about his answers?
I thought he had some really good advice, especially with relating things back to real life examples that the students could understand and having them think about things in a way that's not quite mathematical and then connecting the math back into that.
And that's what we really hope to do with this podcast, and that is get tips and advice from teachers. So if you'd like to check out our other podcasts, just go to our webpage or to the South Carolina Governor School for Science and Mathematics YouTube channel. Now remember, until next time,
Keep learning and growing. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.